we kick it off with a good old Eren Yeager. Epic, very epic. I'm just like the Mikasa. It works, it does stuff. Would you look at that? Amazing. Don't you love my voiceover? It's 10 out of 10. I put the most effort into these. Alright, so we received a comment saying, can I make a movie like Attack on Titan? And that's exactly what we're not going to do. This is kind of just like knockoff Spider-Man PS1 gameplay. Anyway, on to the shitty tutorial. Here you go. Okay, so we're going to create a new Unity project as always and give it a name. I am not good at names. AOT, menu, I can't spell menu, but that's close enough. And we're going to create that. Wait for that to boot up. This usually takes a while. My computer's a piece of shit. It is very slow. Alrighty. So in our new Unity scene, the first thing I'm going to do is import the standard assets because we need a first-person controller. So head over to the asset store, search for the standard assets, and import the first-person controller. Unity does have new standard assets. They are only for Unity 2020 and above though, so I'm not going to be using them as I'm using Unity 2019. We don't need anything apart from the characters, so we can just turn all of these off. I believe we need utility, vehicles we don't need, and import that. Alright, so after those have finished installing, we get some errors, that's always fun. Let's delete some stuff. Editor, water, get rid of that. Awesome, okay. So heading over into our scene, first thing I'm going to do is delete main camera and then import our first person prefab, and I'm going to use the rigid body FPS character controller because we will be using the rigid body. I'm then also going to create a plane. This is just going to act as our ground for now. And there we go, that's just the basic setup. On our player, we're going to add a component and we're going to call this whatever we want. I'm going to call it Grapple because that's essentially what we're doing, and we're going to open this up with whatever code editor we use. Alright, so in here we're going to first off by creating some references. We're going to have a public camera cam. We're going to have a public float grapple speed. So this will be how fast you move while grappling. We have a public float grapple strength. So when we're changing direction or being picked up off the ground, how strong do we want the grapple to be? We can have a public float grapple distance. So how far can the grapple reach? And for now I'm just going to set them all to a default of 10. I'm also going to add a private vector3 grapple position, and this is just going to store where we're grappling to, what object we're grappling to, and where on that object we're grappling to. Then also a private ball grappling, just so that we know we are in a grappling state. And then because we are using the rigid body character controller, I'm going to make a reference to that rigid body. So the first thing we're going to do is set that rigid body to the component on our game object. So get component rigid body. And then over in our update, first thing I'm going to do is create a raycast hit, because what essentially we're going to be doing is raycasting out from the player directly forward to whatever object we're looking at. So then we're going to do a physics raycast from our transform.position to our camera, and we want to use our camera's transform forward. So whatever direction the camera is looking in, that's the way we'll shoot out the ray. And then we're going to set that out to hit and put in our grapple distance as our max ray length. Alright, so in here, we are going to leave that for now, because this will come in a bit later when we set up a UI that will keep all of that managed. We are going to go into the next one down, create a input, and I'm going to use the mouse button, but you can set this to either a key or whatever you want it to be. This will activate when we want to grapple. We want to see if our hit.transform is not equal to null. So if this raycast actually hits something, make sure it's actually an object, and then we're going to set our grapple position equal to our hit.point. So wherever the ray hits, we want to set our grapple position to that point. Set grappling to true because we are trying to grapple. And then we're actually going to turn off our rigid body's gravity. Seems a bit odd to do, but it'll make a bit more sense in a minute. And then create another if statement and get button up. So when we let go, so the way this is going to work is if we're holding down the mouse button, it's going to keep grappling until we let go. You can obviously change these to either get key down or whatever you want it to be to activate the grapple. And then we're going to create a new void stop grapple, just so we can use this and stop grapple. Okay. So coming down to our stop grapple function, we're just going to set grappling back equal to false and set our use gravity back equal to true, just like that. Okay, so now if we are grappling, what we want to do is create a new vector 3. This is going to be our move vector, and set this equal to our grapple position minus our transformed position, and we want to normalize it. Our move vector is then going to be plus equal to our camera transform.forward. So we also want to be able to control which way we're moving in midair. So what I'm going to do is get our cameras forward and add it to our move direction. So what this does is it moves you in a straight line directly towards the building that we're aiming towards, or whatever object we've hit with our raycast. And by adding our camera.transform forward, what that'll allow us to do is move also in the direction that our camera is facing and toward the building at the same time, kind of creating that swing-like effect. And then we're just going to multiply that by our grapple speed, so we can move a bit faster when we are grappling. And then we do a rigid body, add force, move vector, times our grapple strength, times time.delta time, and we're going to have a force mode as a velocity change. And then the last thing I'm going to do is see if the distance between the object that we're grappling towards and the player is further than our grapple distance to let go of the grapple. So if our transformed position to our grapple pos, if that's greater than our grapple distance, then stop grappling. That needs to be vector3.distance. Okay, and that's the very basic setup. So back in our scene, I'm going to create some objects, just some cubes. Just make a nice big cube. Actually, going to make this a bit taller, actually. And then on our player, we need to assign some things. So of course the main camera. Like that there. I'm actually going to lower the grapple speed and maybe at 3, increase my distance a bit, and the strength I'll leave to now, but we'll have to see if that's fine. Okay, so now if we click and hold, we should move towards the building when we are in range, just like that. Okay, so now obviously we want some kind of indication when we're actually able to grapple onto a building. It's quite useful to have. So what I'm going to do is create a UI image for now. So kind of to our game, I'm just going to make this decent size and set it to red. And that's just going to be a small reticle like object. So now back in our grapple, we're going to be using Unity Engine.ui. Okay. And then we're also going to add some more references. So we're going to have a public image, which is the one we just created, and that's going to be our indicator. And we're also going to have a public float indicator lerp speed. So this will be how quickly the indicator will move around the scene. And I'm just going to set that to 10. Okay, so what we want to do is our image, its rect transform is anchored to the center, and it's got a X and Y position of 0. So when we edit this, what we're going to have to do is get our screen width and height. So create a new vector 2. Let's call it hit point center position, and set it to a new vector 2. Screen.width divided by 2. Screen.height divided by 2. So this gets the center of our screen. We're then also going to set our indicator.color, and I'm going to set it to red when we're unable to reach a building. You can also change the sprite or whatever you want it to be. It's the option there. And then in this if statement that we left open before, I'm going to set our hit point equal to our camera.screen to world to screen point, sorry. And we want to get our hit.point. So what this does, wherever this raycast hits, it will change that point in world coordinates to one on our screen, which we can then use to put on a UI element. And if we do hit something, we also want to change our indicator.color to color.green. So that'll let us know that we are able to grapple onto something. Okay. And then a bit further down in our grappling. So if we are grappling, then I'm going to also change the indicator color to color.yellow. And then also going to update our hit point, world to screen point, grapple position. And then just at the very bottom here, we're going to get our indicator. Rect transform position equal to vector 2 lerp from our current indicator rect transform position to our hit point, and then time by total time times our lerp speed. Okay, so this will move around the indicator on the screen to wherever we hit. So if we come back into here, do have to remember to assign the reference. So drag that into there and hit play. So now you'll see when we are looking at an object that we're able to connect to, it will light up green. And then when we actually hold it, it'll turn yellow, even if we aren't looking at it. So as you can see, our strength is quite a bit, way too much. So I'm going to turn this down to maybe 5. And then what we're able to do is grapple. Again, you will have to adjust some things. All right. And that's pretty much it. Very simple movement, not too hard to implement either, and it works with most character controllers. If you want to compare your code to mine or just play around in the demo scene that I made at the start of the video, all the code's going up on GitHub, so you can download it from there. And feel free to use any of the assets in that folder for your own use. Just make sure to check licenses and things like that. And that's about it for this video. I'll see you in another 7 months, I think. Yeah, 7 months. That's a good time, yeah.